prop with a little bit of Masteron. Does this work? I'm going to read you a quick email. Hey Ryan, really enjoying your content lately. You're the only YouTuber that puts it out scientifically, but also is pretty tenacious and heavily enforces your points to make us think. That said, I've taken a lot of your advice and recently started on a test prop Masteron HCG protocol. I have never had libido and adequate erections on any dose of TRT. Aromatase inhibitors do not work well for me and cause side effects. Since studying your content, I decided on test prop and Masteron with a little bit of HCG, and my success so far is unbelievable. Thank you so much for the content that you put out. You've saved my protocol. Just for reference, if you want to do a video on YouTube about it, here is the protocol that I am currently taking. This guy figured out how to dial in. And the strategy of test prop plus Masteron with some HCG is honestly fucking perfect. So I want to break down what this guy did. I want to give you his protocol. He wrote it out in the email. I'll put it on the screen. And let's just kind of discuss how this dude was able to dial in with the DHT derivative. An adequate amount of testosterone, by the way. I mean, we're not talking about baby doses. And a little bit of HCG to balance things out. And the cool part of it is every single hormone this dude is injecting in his body is fast acting and clears the system quickly. Let's look at it. Let's break this protocol down because we're talking about steel rod erections and killer libido. That's what we're all shooting for here. Sit tight. All right, boys, before we start the video, look, Cortex Labs, which is my company, is a TRT guidance, sexual dysfunction resolution, and performance optimization company. Got a range of different products. Right now, the source list, which is only up for a short period of time, is 30% off. All right, the code is in front of the screen. It is source30. You enter it at checkout. If you want to save money on source list, we don't run specials on it. It's not going to stay up long. I'm going to have to take it down soon. Guys, go get source list. It's 30% off right now. Code's in the description. Look, if you need to hire me for coaching, this is what I do, mostly regarding sexual function, libido and erections on TRT, on Cypionate, on Enanthate, on prop, on cream, on DHT derivatives. I'm the guy that helps people dial in. I get the call when people have tried everything and sexual function still isn't where they need it to be. We get the situation resolved relatively quickly. Go hire me. livecortex.com. All right, so let's break this down. There are 3 compounds in this guy's protocol, which after trying Cypionate, Enanthate, prop, cream alone in various doses, he could not dial in on TRT. He tried Arimidex, he tried Aromacin, tried various doses of all those things and just could not get things to be consistently good. As I've said, this is a continuous problem that people have, right? It's just, again, about finding the estrogen zone that you need to be in while ensuring you have enough DHT still, you know, and some people give up with the higher doses of tests and have to go down to 100 milligrams, 120 milligrams a week with a little added DHT to solve their problem. But if you could find the dose of a DHT derivative with something fast acting like prop that controls the estrogen and lands you in your range, and they all sync well because they have similar half-lives, then you could still have higher doses of test and get all the anabolism and all the energy and all that good stuff. But you keep estrogen in your range and you walk away a happy man. All right, so I'm going to put the protocol that this guy finally dialed in on after just watching our content and essentially trying everything on the screen here. It is 210 milligrams of test prop a week. This is 60 milligrams every other day intramuscularly, okay? He's pinning in the upper glute with a 5/8 inch needle, 60 milligrams every other day. Now, on top of that, he's doing 250 IU HCG daily, okay? You might consider that a lot of HCG. I consider that a pretty good dose of HCG. That's going to make you aromatize a little more, but if you're controlling that, you're golden and you get a lot of good testicular function, and you're not going to have to worry about any kind of downregulation of Leydig cells, which actually doesn't happen. It's just a change in the pathway of testosterone conversion away from, I think, 17-hydroxyprogesterone to DHEA. Anyway, then he's got 30 milligrams of drostanolone propionate, or Masteron propionate, fast-acting propionate, every other day. That's a total of 105 milligrams a week of Masteron. And here, everything works. Erections work, libido works, energy works, the physique is changing rapidly. You got the masculinity, you got that male-centered DHT drive, and you got functional testicles, and you got massive peaks in testosterone, and therefore highly, highly dopaminergic activity going on. So that's really the recipe, you know, for making things work when you're using hormones. Now, like, let's talk about why this protocol works, specifically for libido and erections. All right, 210 milligrams of test prop a week, that is a good dose. I mean, 200, 210, if you can make those higher doses work, as I've always said, you're going to have a better time, right? You're going to be a lot more anabolic, you're going to feel better, your energy is going to be super consistent throughout the day, and you're never going to have major peaks where you feel like you need a nap and you feel like, oh, now, what am I, an old man now all of a sudden? You just get to live your life with a lot of energy and a lot of vitality. Everybody wants that. The 60 milligrams every other day of test prop is, in this case, a perfect strategy, right? You know, average doses of prop that work are between 15 and 25 milligrams a day. But since there's a trough here, like you peak after 18 to 24 hours on the first injection of prop, that's 60 milligrams, then you start coming down. So you never really consistently keep conversion from test to estradiol. So estradiol stays reasonable, still over this guy's range. That's why he needs the Masteron. But like it you know, the every other day thing with prop does work. Now here's, I think, like the most important part. Guys got 30 milligrams of Masteron propionate every other day. It's 105 milligrams a week. It is exactly half of the test that he's injecting. And they're both propionate esters. So they both have an approximately close to equal half-life and duration of action. He did not send his bloods, but I would imagine that the total test is at peak, it's somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 nanograms per deciliter. And with 105 milligrams of Masteron prop a week, injected 30 milligrams every other day, you're competing for estrogen receptors, you're downregulating aromatase gene expression, you're giving yourself some DHT-like androgen receptor binding, and whether or not the E2 budges on the bloods, it's being lowered at the tissue level, which is ultimately what matters here. So I don't know if the guy's E2 is actually changing all that much, but I would wager it's probably between 30 and 55 picograms per milliliter. Well, at the tissue level, though, being inhibited to where he just found the right balance in terms of sexual function. Now, let's talk about why this stack works. Why this stack worked for a random person who and never consulted with me, just watches our YouTube channel and kind of puts some stuff together. Test prop. Testosterone propionate is a short ester. It does not stick around in your body long, and it does not really build up. So you get a more stable peak and trough control. You get to control that. You get to dose it, you get to, you know, feel it peak, you get to let it trough, and it happens quickly. There's no waiting 4 to 6 weeks for that to stabilize. You get to do that really quickly. Test prop, I have found milligram per milligram compared to long esters aromatizes less aggressively because it is not constantly peaking or rising androgen levels. And test prop is a lot easier to adjust your dose based on mood, water retention, libido, erections, all that stuff. Now, let's talk about why else this protocol works in having drostanolone or Masteron propionate in the picture. First of all, it's a non-aromatizable DHT derivative. Masteron, just like DHT itself, downregulates aromatase gene expression. Again, that CYP19A1 gene that's responsible for encoding the production of aromatase enzymes. So when you downregulate that, you naturally just have a little bit less aromatase enzymes and therefore less estradiol. Masteron is a mild estrogen antagonist, if you will, competing for the estrogen receptors and reducing estrogenic activity at the tissue level, where again, this really matters. And of course, I mean, this supports a pretty good sex hormone binding globulin profile. Now, sometimes AIs like Aromasin or Arimidex can blunt dopamine and serotonin function. I think one of the reasons this happens is because they act too powerfully and too fucking quickly. Here are some of the practical benefits, just kind of breaking down why this works. It seems really clear to me, and I would like to lay those out for you guys. Number one, better libido. I mean, this guy's libido is fucking crazy. than with Arimidex or Aromasin. Again, it's because you're not crushing via complete suppression of the enzymes the conversion of test to estradiol at certain tissues, especially the brain. When you do that, your brain cannot, even in the presence of the hottest girl or the thing that you are most interested in, sometimes even pornography, you cannot get aroused. Man, I've taken AI as an overshot, and I know a lot of you have too, where your libido leaves your body. The second thing is you get no erectile crashes, which would happen again due to the over-suppression of E2. Man, these aromatase inhibitors, we all know they're cancer drugs, or at least, they're used for that. They're really, really strong. And a step down from them are the DHT derivatives, and mainly Masteron and then otherwise Primobolan. So like when you completely starve the penis of estradiol, you get inhibition of nitric oxide signaling, and then your erections go to shit. Plus, when you're suppressing aromatase significantly and you don't respond well to that, the brain side is so shut down, you're not going to get an erection. And then again, because this is a propionate ester, the Masteron, it's easier to adjust on the fly. You do not have to sit in a bad protocol. You can make an adjustment every 4 days when you're using a protocol like this. But here's the question. Why did testosterone alone, or testosterone with HCG and an AI, which this guy tried, fail? Well, testosterone alone, like just test with HCG in this case, failed because, number one, the long esters are super aromatizable. You have to wait a considerable amount of time, after you change a long ester protocol to determine what the effects are. I mean, this sometimes, especially if you're lowering your dose, can take 6 to 8 weeks, because then you finally get down to the estrogen level that you're at, but then you got to kind of wait to see how your body responds to that. You might need an additional 2 weeks. But test prop plus Masteron plus HCG succeeded because it delivered stable DHT activity, measured, not overshooting, not undershooting, but measured estrogen modulation and direct androgenic action at the penis, the brain, and the tissue level. Also, there's something to say for injectables not converting enough to DHT, whether they do so systemically in the blood and you've got all this DHT in the blood. It's not a guarantee that this is happening at the tissue level. And I've been through ChatGPT with this, and I've asked it to theorize why this might happen. And ultimately it comes down to the body doesn't know sometimes how to take an injectable, convert it to DHT in the tissues, and distribute it evenly. It's not like we were built to inject testosterone. We're built to make it from the testes. And there the body knows how to regulate DHT at the tissue level. So sometimes you just don't get enough of that DHT-like effect, even with high doses of test, and especially the long-acting esters. It just doesn't work for everybody. I mean, DHT, essential for smooth muscle function in the penis. Nerve sensitivity, that's another one. Like regarding sensation, DHT is like the major driver of that. Endothelial health, like dihydrotestosterone, and in this case, the DHT that's coming from PrOP, but also the androgen-like, DHT-like androgen receptor binding that's coming from drostanolone or Masteron. These are raw materials that help penile endothelial health, the lining of the blood vessels, to keep those blood vessels healthy and blood flowing correctly. Like DHT is not just a hormone, it actually helps your blood flow in the sex organ. And, as we've talked about before, hypothalamic androgen receptor signaling, okay, which is like a major center for your libido, is dramatically enhanced from the kind of androgen receptor binding that DHT and DHT derivatives execute. And I think why protocols like this ultimately end up working, because we're really talking about, having enough DHT, but also keeping estrogen where you need it to be, is that it controlled estrogen, but it didn't eliminate it. Like these are the pitfalls of using an AI, because sometimes they just eliminate the conversion of test to estradiol in tissues where you really do need it to some extent. So the joints, the brain, the sex organs, they can function well because you're not squashing the estradiol. You're not eliminating it. You're in a measured way controlling it. What I honestly think happened in this case is that like just TRT with HCG for this guy. I think aromatase activity and 5-alpha reductase activity were somewhat sporadic, with 5-alpha reductase activity being on the lower end, but still normal enough to produce normal DHT, but he might have just needed more. And the aromatase activity that this guy had, especially relative to inhibition of the aromatase enzymes, reacted sporadically to aromatase inhibitors. This is pretty common. But TestProp plus Masteron here, Masteron itself provides the DHT-like thing without having to rely on conversion, okay? Without having to rely on potentially lower-end functional 5-alpha reductase enzymes. Masteron's already 5-alpha reduced. So you're getting the DHT you need regardless. Don't have to rely on conversion. This is why this works for some people. And again, Masteron is modulating E2, which is what everybody needs, without nuking it. All right, this is the final statement on this protocol. I wanted to share. I thought it was really, really awesome. This guy's name is Charles. So Charlie, if you're watching, thank you for sending me that email. You can chase testosterone levels all you want, but if your DHT isn't rising and your E2's all over the place, your penis will not care what your labs say. In this case, TestProp with Masteron Prop took the randomness out of the equation. No AI, no major fluctuations, no nuking, of the aromatase enzymes. And the guy got, direct androgenic power, direct DHT-like binding, and enough estrogen modulation to dial them in. Again, the protocol was 210 milligrams TestProp per week. This is 60 milligrams injected every other day. It was 105 milligrams of Masteron propionate per week, 30 milligrams injected every other day. Both of these are in the upper glute with 5/8-inch needles. So that's intramuscular, and then 250 IU subcutaneous HCG daily. Done. Guy doesn't have to do anything else. Tried for years and years, tried every ester imaginable, watched some of this content, probably got the source list and grabbed some Drustanalone, and now he's dialed in. All right, as I said at the beginning, boys, thanks for watching. Source list is 30% off. We don't run discounts on this, and I'm not even keeping this up for some considerable period of time. It is back up with 3 new vendors, so it is updated. The old source list that you guys got is not the new source list that you'll get here. Importantly, it's 30% off. The code for that is source30. You can see it on the screen. You enter it at checkout. If you're using mobile, make sure you hit show order summary so you can see the coupon field. It's about being able to circumvent your clinic if you need to. It's about being able to have access to the things that you might need. Unfortunately, here in the States, there's a bunch of stuff that we might need to dial in. Proviron, Masteron, Primo, Anavar in some cases, when you're low dosing, but you're not getting enough of that anabolism and energy, so you dose a little bit of Anavar on top of that. That the clinics here just can't provide. At the same time, sometimes you need to be the master of your own protocol. It often works out better than taking some suggestion with the clinic, where then you got to pay for consults to have them suggest diff changes in your protocol. If you don't let the clinic run your protocol, you're going to be sitting there stalled and not making progress for 6 months to a fucking year. Sometimes you have to do everything yourself. Take my advice, study our content. Get the source list. It's 30% off right now. If you don't want to go at this alone, I don't blame you. Because before I learned all this stuff, I wouldn't have wanted to go at it alone because it's confusing, and especially dialing in libido and erections can be hard. That is my specialty. You can hire me for a one-off or for longer-term stuff, boys, and sexual dysfunction especially. We're going to need time, and we have a variety of things to do in a very logical order, which I've seen work effectively. I'll dial you in regarding libido and erections. So we've got a 1 month, 3 month, a 6 month, and a 1 year. For those of you who have the budget and are serious people, business people especially, just hire me. Let me do the work so you can move on with the rest of your life. If you need to dial in on Test Sip, which is notoriously hard to dial in, I created an entire instructional video course showing you from start to finish how to do it specifically around libido and erections. I'm the guy that does this all day for years. Trust me. This course lays out everything. Get it down in the description of this video. All right, that pretty much sums it. We've reached the conclusion of the video. Hold on. Stuck or something? Thanks for watching. Sorry. Give me this. It's We're done. It has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you boys. I appreciate the time that you've taken to watch this video. Do me 2 favors if you would. If you like anything that I said, just hit the like button. Matters a lot. Matters a lot. Please hit the like button, brother. Secondarily, if you want to be on board one of the fastest growing TRT, HRT channels on the web, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. If you're just finding this, hit the sub button. Join us. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Content coming for the rest of the week, as well as a live stream this Saturday. I'll see you guys then, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you later, boys.